I'm Bill Finnegan, William Finnegan. I'm a writer, been a staff writer at The New Yorker since 1987, where I cover politics, very broadly defined. I've published 5 books. The most recent was a memoir called Barbarian Days, A Surfing Life. And I'm in Aspen because Winter Words invited me. And I always loved to write, but I only realized recently how much I loved to write when I was little, because out of the blue, while I was working on this memoir, a big box came in the mail of letters from an old friend, like my best friend in high school, and I'd written to him all these letters that I didn't even remember writing when I was 13, 14, and he'd found them in a garage and sent them off to me. What happened was I grew up in Southern California, and then we moved. My dad got a job in Hawaii when I was 13, and we moved there. I wrote voluminous letters, like every night, the story of the surf and everything that was going on in Hawaii. And the writing was absolutely terrible. At the same time, really rich. They were just full of so much detail. And most of it seemed to be true. I had to, try to figure that part out. I mean, these stories I bit into them, and these letters, and all that period came back. And so I ended up making that time in my life, my school in Honolulu, I was the first chapter of the book, and those letters sort of formed the backbone. So I was apparently an avid, longhand writer at 13. But I mainly write about politics. I've done a lot of conflict journalism, write about these big, heavy subjects, power and injustice. But I've always surfed. I've been surfing for more than 50 years now, quite avidly, but sort of in the closet about it. I mean, it's just this thing I do, and hadn't ever really thought about too much. And then realized that I wanted to try to account for it. I wrote a piece for The New Yorker, a profile of a guy I used to surf with. That sort of got me started on the subject. But there's this kind of bipolarity in my life between, being a journalist, having this kind of public life and trying to be a good citizen and all that, and then this completely irresponsible, self-indulgent, obsessive wave chasing. And I felt like it was time to try to account for what all that was, what that meant. And so surfing it's an autobiography with a sort of theme of surfing all through it, and trying to explain really to general readers what this was, what it is to me, what surfing, that world is like. And not the sort of sensitivities, at least regarding myself. It was, how much do I want to reveal is a question all the time, of course. And what attitude to take from the writer's point of view toward this character, this kid, this young guy, all his foolishness, and how much to be that person, how much to sort of embrace that or forgive it. So those are different questions. And then again, the fact that this is private life, none of this was on the record. I'm used to working as a journalist where I'm here, I'm Bill, I'm from The New Yorker, and we're on the record. And now I'm writing about all these private moments, shared with friends and loved ones, and without any permission, just arrogating to myself that right. Now, this moment is unprecedented, I think. I mean, it's certainly unprecedented in my experience, and I think in perhaps American political life, just the sheer toxicity of the president's attacks on the press, calling the American press the enemy of the people, which is, that's a Stalin-esque phrase with a very, very dark history. And obviously very ominous, and all this fake news stuff. And of course there is plenty of fake news being produced, not by serious news organizations, but by trolls of different types. And so it's in many ways a shifting landscape, really, really hard to work in and just do straight, serious reporting and writing. The most serious part of it by far, as I say, are Trump's direct attacks on the role of the press. As if either he doesn't understand it, what we do and the importance of what we do for democratic life, or that he is just determined to destroy it. and not that he'll succeed in any, I don't mean it's a project with a possibility of succeeding, but that his attitude and his reactions are just purely antagonistic, destructive, with seemingly zero understanding. The book that occurs to me that really changed my own view of things and my own approach to writing was a novel called Tortuga by Peter Matheson. I don't know how much people have read it, but came out when I was in college, I think, and I just absolutely loved it. It's a very strange book. Basically, the whole thing's written in dialect, in Caribbean dialect. It's about some turtle fishermen. It's a kind of sea story, and with very, very little narration, just these blocks of dialogue written in dialect. So the captain is spelled C-O-P-M. I didn't even know this dialect. And that book, though, the sort of depth of his research, so to speak, in that world, and then his willingness to kind of deliver a story just completely in the language of that world, which I found really beautiful, poetic. I was writing fiction at that time myself, and I was trying to do something similar with a novel about railroaders in California, where people speak a dialect, around railroad work. Not successfully like he did, but it carried over when I started writing long-form nonfiction, mainly for the New Yorker. You don't have the freedom to write in dialect. It's the New Yorker, but the idea that you could submerge yourself so deeply in a world that you kind of come back to your readers from inside it, and everything you say informs them. I'm guilty of over-reporting almost every big story I've ever done. I mean, I'll take more than a year on some stories just to understand as much as I can, and then bring back the bits that are going to work for my readers. And so, strangely, Tortuga had a huge influence on my choices in my work.